You ever work with that 50, 60-year-old person all of a sudden shows up one day with that shiny new pickup truck? Yeah, that's not a coincidence. They're probably preparing for an imminent retirement. That's right, there are some key assets, some places you need to consider spending your money before you retire. Because after you retire, a lot of times, your income just isn't there to sustain it. You maybe don't have the money, you need a new vehicle, maybe the roof on your house is wearing out. You need to start thinking about some of those things that may draw tens of thousands of dollars out of your account. And most people, once they retire, fixed income, lower income, of course, even Social Security, and even if you're on a defined benefit pension, usually that's enough to take a serious dent out of the pocketbook. Welcome back to the hustle, everybody, and welcome back to the grind. And today we are going to talk about 5 of those major items that you need to think about spending your money. Because as they say, you've got to spend money to make money. And realistically, before you retire, while you're still earning an income and you still have an opportunity to maybe take on a little extra overtime, possibly a second job, or just work a little harder and even budget possibly before your retirement, when you actually do see that sudden drop in income, you should be considering 5 of these major items to buy before you retire. And the first one we'll talk, honestly, it's something I've learned. I've chatted with numerous people. You know, as you retire, you talk to a lot of people that are in very much the same boat as I am. You know, people, they're retired, most of which are a little bit older than me, but the same principles generally apply. When you talk about regret, some people kind of tie regrets to the fact that they didn't buy some of these things before they retired because they could never do it after. Well, the first one you have to think about is your overall health and well-being. I've said this before too. Walking, working out, and doing all those things are what it takes to keep yourself in good shape. You want to live longer, right? Well, I certainly do, and I certainly want to increase my standard of life, my quality of life. And doing that, I try to keep in good shape. Well, gym memberships. That's the first thing you've got to think about. Gym memberships, maybe that nice expensive bike that you can pile the miles on that's well built, might cost you a couple $1,000s. Maybe gym membership, maybe just that gym equipment, because maybe you live in a climate like I do where you have winter, seems like 6 months of the year, and you have to think about, okay, that's great for summer to have a bike. What do I do in the winter? So maybe you supplement either a gym membership, possibly a bike, and maybe getting a rowing machine, and possibly even, some other equipment, whether it's doing some free weights that costs money. And the last thing you want to do is have to dole out $2,000, $3,000, $5,000 for a bunch of equipment or an ongoing membership, but while you're actually in retirement. You definitely want to get that equipment in your possession before you retire. It also helps you budget and realize, okay, I have it now, I don't need to spend this later. That large expenditure is gone. So that's something I would strongly suggest, not just spend it because a lot of people don't even think about gym equipment or memberships, but I would start thinking about that. As you retire, you'll have a little more time on your hands. Plus, we've got to take care of ourselves, right? No one else will. So working out is a great way to look after yourself, but doing that sometimes costs a little bit of money. Walking's free, but maybe you want to take on some other aspects. Like I said, come winter, you're not able to walk as much, you're going to have to do something different. The second thing I want to talk about is what I mentioned, cars, trucks. I'm not suggesting go out in there spending that $90,000, $100,000 on a new truck. We see the prices of these vehicles today. It's absolutely asinine. I can't even believe the prices. When we think about how much people are spending on a vehicle, on a car payment. Okay, the average car payment's about $1,000 a month right now. Well, I shouldn't say an average. As they say, almost 20%, 1 in 5 is spending over $1,000 a month on a car payment now. The average car loan or the average car transaction price is basically cresting $50,000 now. And it's not uncommon to find people paying $1,500, even $2,000 a month for a car payment. Now, nobody needs that type of vehicle, not when you're retired. Something you just want simple, reliable, robust, something that's going to last you a long time. Because the last thing you want to do is have that clapped out, worn out vehicle as you enter retirement, and then something major happens, a transmission, maybe it's just rusting out. You need something more reliable. Maybe you want to do some road trips you've got planned to visit, some parents or some family on the coast, and those 12-hour drives you're not gonna make it with that old jalopy. So you've got to be thinking about, do I have a quality vehicle? It doesn't have to be brand new. You don't have to spend 80 grand. There's still plenty of vehicles out there. for $20,000, $30,000. 28 is still the average used car transaction price right now, currently, based on many stats. And I've got to say, you can still find some great vehicles with low mileage. So the key here is not necessarily new, maybe new to you, maybe new, something that's within the budget, but get a vehicle and have that vehicle pretty much paid off prior to retiring. I mean, you don't want to buy that vehicle and just start a series of payments for the next 8 years. That as well as setting yourself up for failure. So you don't want to have those payments. You want to have those payments behind you. You either want to pay cash or have it on the tail end of your loan period where you're not really having to deal with big loan payments at all. So ultimately, having that newer or late model vehicle that's reliable, hopefully with some warranty, that's going to get you out for the next number of years reliably and not have to worry about that huge expense. That's my take. Another item you really need to consider buying, or at least taking advantage, if you're working for a company that has some benefits. A lot of times you're going to lose those benefits. I mean, some companies offer up extended benefits when you retire, but quite frankly, from my experience, most of that tends to go away. Most of those companies that were offering those types of extended benefits once you retire are dwindling that away, are shriveling that down, are pulling that back, and essentially pulling the rug out from under you. So knowing that, understanding what those benefits packages are while you're working is going to help you buy your next item. I mean, a lot of us as we get older, we have that one tooth that's really bothering us, or maybe that tooth got knocked out in a hockey game and you want to get it replaced because you want to have that nice smile for the wedding pictures for your kid's wedding. Whatever it is, you want to fix your teeth. So you're going to want to spend that money up front. Dental work is expensive. Have you seen? Spend $1,500, $2,000 for a root canal. You do an implant, it's anywhere $6,000 to $8,000 to do one tooth implant. I know, I just had one done this last year. It's a bit of a pain. It usually results in numerous visits. I think I ended up something like 10 or 12 visits between, early checks, looks, investigation, x-rays, planned action, preparing it, the drills, the screws, the add-ons, all the extras that go into an implant. It's a lot of work, and it's no wonder that they cost a lot of money. So taking care of those expensive dental procedures, root canals, fillings, cleanings, but most importantly, like implants are the big expense. So if you need to take care of some implants and you knew it was something coming, or you just don't like dentists, I mean, let's face it, most of us don't like dentists. I can't stand dentists. As a matter of fact, nothing personal. They're great people who go to school for a long time to be great at what they do. But I'm just not the biggest fan of dentists. I never have been. So that said, I'll be the first to admit that, I kind of grinned and bared it. But I also knew that I had to take care of it before my pension and benefits and all of that, the benefits ran out. I knew that. So on the way out the door, even though, my company they extended out benefits for a period of time, they're pretty much gone. And you got to know that end date. Whatever that end date looks like, make sure you take advantage of that. Take care of all of that expensive dental work, because once you're in your fixed income, who can afford to spend another $8,000 or $10,000 just to put in a fake tooth? Not too many people. And then it ultimately becomes null and void. You just live with it, and usually just live with that hole in your jaw. So most people either just live with that, not taking care of it, or if you want to improve the overall look and the structure, because it's not just cosmetic. Sometimes you lose a few teeth, it actually changes the structure and the shape of your face. So you want to maintain that look as long as possible. Like they say, keep your teeth as long as you physically can. And the best way to do that is looking after those implants and the major dental work before you retire. After, it's going to be a tough go. Think about hobbies either that you have today, or maybe hobbies you want to consider taking up. Hobby equipment can be very expensive. And like I've also said, I started a side hustle quite some time ago, and I constantly find myself upgrading equipment, changing equipment, trying different things. And so hobby equipment, maybe you want to take up photography. That's an easy one that's light duty and it's not heavy on the body. But you might consider buying that equipment now, buying that new camera, buying some of that gear, the tripod. I mean, all of that stuff costs money. So if you want to take up a new hobby as you go into retirement, start thinking about what that hobby is. Start shopping around, do your research. And ideally, you're going to go out there and invest in a little bit of that equipment. It doesn't mean you need to go on this massive shopping spree and buy every possible conceivable item known to mankind. But the bottom line is you've got to be thinking about. But the bottom line is the bottom line is you should be thinking about those things that you want to do with your spare time. If you want to learn some new tricks, some new trades, if you want to move yourself into a space where you can possibly even generate a little bit of revenue. I know numerous people where, personally, where I've got friends that their wives basically went freelance and learned the art of photography and now do it professionally, do wedding photos and all kinds of other photography. So there's definitely potential in it. There's a lot of people doing it, but it's a great way to be able to work out of your home, learn the skill on your own, and master that art and craft. So it doesn't matter whatever side hustle, arts, crafts, hobbies, whatever it is, it's something you should be thinking about, and make sure some of that equipment is expensive, so you buy that right away. Buy it before you retire, because once you retire, can you afford to dole out 5-10 grand on photography equipment or any other hobby equipment you might be thinking about? Another area of massive expense when you retire that you probably can't stomach all that much, very few people can. I mean, the average home these days, a roof might be cost anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000. Hot water tank might be 4 or 5 grand. A new furnace might be 4 or 5 grand. Appliances throughout the house, fridge, dishwasher, and beyond. Might be another 5, 6, 7 grand. You get the gist, right? And then we're not even talking about doing renovations. We're talking basic structural or mechanical equipment just to keep the household running. We're not talking about installing hardwood and carpet. We're actually just talking about the fundamentals to keep the house dry, to keep it heated, and to keep everything functioning. That's it. I mean, if you want to start thinking about rentals, that's yet another expense. But just talking about the base fundamentals, are there some of those big costs? I mean, let's face it. If you're like me, then you've probably been in your house for a while. Most people, generally that have owned a house or a property or an apartment or something have probably been in there. If you're my age, in your 50s and your 60s, you've probably been in that home for decades. Maybe 10 years, 20, 30 years, maybe like my parents, they had that house for 50 years. So whatever it is, you may be in that house for a while. And if you are, there's a good chance that some of the equipment's failing, on the verge. So you've got to be thinking about that. Where are those key areas that are on the verge? Maybe it's time to put a new roof on it before you retire. Maybe you need a hot water tank because it's not putting out anymore. Maybe your furnace is glitching and you can't trust it in the cold weather and you don't want to leave for Hawaii for 2 weeks because you were worried your furnace may not run. Whatever it is, you got to think about some of those things because they do creep in there. And most people are on those fixed incomes, really don't have the extra money. And even if they have savings, the last thing they necessarily want to do is pull out of their savings or some of their investments just to spend on a new roof for $15,000. That's a hard pill to swallow. So ultimately, you've got to be thinking about some of those big expenditures in your home. Like they say, a house can be an asset, but it's equally a liability. Owning a house has huge costs associated. Most houses go up in value over the course of a long-term 20, 30, 40 years. But in between that time, you're doing 1 to 2 to maybe 3 renovations. And often you wonder if you even break even. But we're not here to talk about the dispute whether a house is a good investment or not. We all need a home to live in. And ultimately, when you get to those later ages in life, from my take, what I've experienced, things just wear out. They break down, especially after you've had a young family grow up through the household, pets, yourself, how many cycles, heat cycles of all of this equipment, roof, all the sun that it's subjected to, the hard elements, snow, hail, rain, everything takes a pounding. And so ultimately, it's going to see some wear and tear. So you got to be thinking about, is it time to replace some of that equipment or is it not? Anyway, I really hope that all helped you. I know some of these things we tackled beforehand. I knew already. We did our roof in advance because we knew that we had to take it on. We also bought my wife a late model. It was a used car, but it was very lightly used and with very low miles. Still had some warranty on it. So a lot of the things that we did, we were anticipating already. And a lot of people I speak to that were preparing for retirement and took these extra courses of action found it a lot more relaxing and a lot less anxiety inducing, because having all that extra stress and big expenditures once you retire just makes it a lot more unbearable sometimes. Anyway, I'd like to hear your thoughts. Please do drop a line. And again, as always, have a wonderful weekend, everybody. Talk to you real soon. Bye-bye.